Chapter 13, Stoned in Saigon. Pasadena, Southeast Asia, December 1970. Fresh Out of Borstal was the title of the album. Borstal was the English reform school for juvenile delinquents. The record company pitch was that these guys were tough-ass teens turned musicians, natural-born rebels, therefore worthy of airplay. The very least we could do is give 'em a listen and take this promotional denim shirt with the Fresh Out of Borstal stenciled on the back. Since the shirt matched my jeans, I wore it regularly, but my long hair covered the word fresh, and most people who saw it only asked about Borstal. Steve Siegel did turn me on to a couple of cuts, and Fresh got enough play to be a familiar name. I was on the air when the promo copy for the second LP came into the station. Steve put it on the audition turntable in the production studio. I could see him through the glass window, fidgeting with his thick glasses, looking like a young Bolshevik out of the Russian Revolution. Then he broke into a smile and came into the studio waving the album. "I told you to watch out for these guys," he said. "Play this next. First cut on side 2. It's Out of Sight." Stoned in Saigon kept reminding us that no matter what happened in our daily lives, no matter what progress we made with the revolution, the war still raged in Southeast Asia. Stoned in Saigon became a part of the consciousness of the KPPC listener. After it had been burned in, we used it as a soundtrack played under the war reports that we read on the air. By now, Woody Bernard had been discharged and was back in Louisiana going to college. I wrote him, asking about drugs in the military. The comic book kid wrote back, telling me a story that went much deeper than the newspaper headlines.
You can get into the Army with a 70 test score. You'd be a cook, a grunt, whatever. The Army's best, those that become officers, need a score of 110. You want to be a pilot and an officer? You need a score of 118. With a score of 124, you're in the top 3%. Then you can get accepted by Special Forces for training. 65% of that 3% wash out. Those that are left don't have to be told twice. Tell them once, and they got it. Here's the gospel. If you lose 1/3 of your fighting force, the enemy will flatten you if he's not hurting. Part of our training was military history. The first people who refused to run from the British bayonet were the Gurkhas from Nepal. When the British couldn't whip them, they hired the little sons of bitches. From then on, for over 100 years, the Gurkhas have fought in the British Army. World War I, the Gurkhas were there. When the British had Hong Kong, the Guards were Gurkhas. British officers, Gurkha troops. When the battles were the bloodiest, British sons were held back, and the Gurkhas were thrown into the breach. The Gurkhas always bled. They went in first. In World War II, German airborne troops held a heavily fortified cliff. The English assault lasted 1 week before hitting 25% losses and pulling back. The Americans, in a few days, were up to 30% losses and pulled back before their unit was destroyed. The Gurkhas followed with 45% losses and never broke, never ran. The Rangers at Normandy took 70% losses, but it was pitch black night, they were working as individuals, and didn't know that they had been devastated as a unit. There's a long military history of up to 35% maximum losses, and you can still be successful. Above that 35%, the spirit of the unit is broken, and the human psyche starts to fray. An 18-year-old American recruit is walking through the jungle. He is part of a platoon, that's part of a company, that's part of a battalion. 750 young badasses, along with officers, chopper people, artillery people. You're talking 1,000 people. If this kid takes a toke, he's no longer aggressive. I think it's been well documented that marijuana does not make people go berserk and shoot up stuff. One kid don't hurt you. Not if you got 1,000 badasses. But if 100 are smoking, now you got 10% of your force too laid back to fight. It's the same as if they'd been a casualty. Stoned or shot, the effect on your ability to fight is the same. That unit gets into a combat situation and boom, 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 let's rock and roll. You're already 10% down, and you can't be successful past 35% loss, but that unit could take another 20 to 25% casualties before it reached 35%. You still got a lot of fight left if only 10% of your unit is stoned. Now suppose you and I would have been on a Special Forces recon team. 2 Americans, me and you, and 4 Montaguards. 6 men, but the subgroup is 2 Americans, me and you. You get down to the nut cutting, we're 2 men. If one of us is stoned, we're at 50% casualty and can't be successful. Remember, we've studied military history as part of our training. There is no way I would gamble our lives on a toke. Would you? I doubt it. Suppose we dropped into some place we're not supposed to be. We've got leave papers already signed, but not dated. If we get caught, guess what, old buddy? We're on leave. Have been for 2 weeks. We're wearing Asian boots and gear. There are no serial numbers on our rifles, no dog tags. We could be civilians for all anybody knows. If we get caught, nobody is going to claim us. Our job is to dance with the devil and live to tell about it. We're looking for men and supplies moving on the Ho Chi Minh Trail. I said trail. Remember, David, when we were kids in Intercoastal, back on the farm looking for rabbits on Coon Island? We'd see a path where the cows had been walking. Then it would split into 2. Over there would be some more paths running parallel. Expand Coon Island a couple thousand times, and you get the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Thousands of enemy troops moving south over a complex of trails. Our job as a 6-man team was not to kill people, but to find them, back off, follow them until they camped. Then we call in the B-52s coming out of Thailand or Oki. We'd find guys in the morning and put B-52s on them right after midnight. If we'd made contact, we had fucked up. We were illegal, 30 to 70 kilometers inside Laos. We couldn't ask for backup. We didn't exist. If we were spotted, we had to run. Would you want me stoned in that situation? Think I'd want you stoned?
The jungle is a nice place. Hell. Except it's got a yellow face. Well.
We had 2 drugs we carried, besides morphine, of course. Little white pills that looked like aspirin, good for about 6 hours. Keep you awake. And the Green Hornets, time-released capsules good for 12 hours. Take them when you had to run. Take them before, and you'd burn up 40% of your body's resources and be depleted when all hell broke loose. When you took a Green Hornet, you were so alert you could hear the grass grow. I know you'd love the feeling. Your muscles would twitch. You could run for 8 to 10 hours. We weren't carrying very much food, but had 80 pounds of ammo and water. About 2 p.m. one day, the 6 of us dump into 150 guys. We had to run. The only way to get away was to outrun them. So we drop a Green Hornet even though the price on your body was terrific. We lost 1 Montaguard to rifle fire but kept running through hard brush, up and down hills. Me and the other American got our big hip pockets stuffed with Vietnamese money. Every now and then, we'd reach down and grab half a handful and throw that son of a bitch in money behind you. If Charlie wants to keep up with me, he's got to watch that money as he goes by it. I'd like to think we slowed him down with it. We weren't just throwing money into the wind. In any case, we got far enough ahead of the bad guys to stop for an hour or so around midnight. Our bodies begging for a rest, but our brains still wanting to run. When we heard them coming, we got on our feet, popped another Green Hornet and boogie. Around 4 a.m., we came to a stream and turned up instead of down. Wound up in a blind canyon looking up at a waterfall. No way to climb out. It's dark, rocks are slippery, double back. By the time we'd backtracked, the bad guys are at the stream. They start pouring fire at the sound of us trying to climb a ridge. A second Montaguard gets hit. He's still breathing. We carry him an hour, but he's slowing us down too much. It's him or the radio. We can't carry both. We gotta leave him. We can't get captured. We can't even prove who we are. No ID, remember? No name, no blame, makes the game hardball. If you get captured, you think they're gonna get you back if you're not even there? Think about it. In the 50s, the Vietnamese had captured the French and worked them until they dropped. It wasn't gonna happen to me. By the following afternoon, we got far enough ahead to let the choppers come get us out of there. The Vietnamese pilots are paid $35 for each Montaguard and $100 for each American they carry out. Those sweet little bastards would kick bullets out of the way to come get us. After the debriefing, I slept for 30 hours. My body was bruised black and blue from being beat up by the underbrush. But as a guerrilla fighter, you live to fight another day. In '61, we signed in Geneva that we'd pulled out of Laos. The North Vietnamese were violating that treaty, and so were we. Our government just didn't have the balls to say, fuck you, we're in there, what are you going to do about it? Like the Vietnamese did. That was the only difference. We didn't exist. Our unit didn't exist. My Army record showed I was digging water wells in Oki. Then I was supposed to be in Da Nang on an agricultural advisory committee. That's how I was spending the war. In actuality, I was at FOB 2, Forwards Operations Base 2 at Kutam. Lots of beautiful French architecture here in Kutam. So where does all the money to pay for this part of the war come from? Every month, 2 different guys like me fly into Saigon.
The sergeant here is so kind, nice. He's out of sight and out of mind. Without the grass, I think we'd all go crazy.
In Saigon, we go to the CIA headquarters in the business district. You go behind the tailor shop, through the little rabbit horn thing, cross the back alley, and there's the CIA guy. He gives you the satchel case full of money. That's to pay your troops, your bonus to the Montaguards, and buy your groceries in the local economy. All of it is Vietnamese cash. Montaguards get about $25 a month. That's a lot of money for them. They get another extra month's pay for every gook they kill during the operation. Kill 3 men, get 3 extra months' pay. Made tigers out of them. Common sense approach. So every month, 2 of us are in Saigon. This was the deal. You picked up cash money in a satchel in a city of beautiful whores in a war-torn land. Those 3 days were too precious for sleep. That's when we'd take the little white pills nonstop. What a temptation for men in their prime. The agreement is you reach down the satchel with one hand, wad it up, and whatever you pull out, you can spend over the next 3 days. We were picking up about $70,000 per month. The handful of Vietnamese money was maybe $1,200 each. A hell of a party for 2 Green Berets in Saigon.
The company is good here, kind. And mescaline is food out here. Fine, fine. Stoned in Saigon, the gooks are dying easy. For kick-ass kids, smoking marijuana was the same all over the world. It was the #1 brand name for the 18-year-old American recruits from the jungle, or chasing the girls in Saigon. For fresh out of Borstal, for Charles Laquidara, Steve Seagal, Jeff Gonzer, and the rest of the FM disc jockeys who were fighting the war on the airwaves. But it was different for Woody Bernard and the professional soldiers who went into the woods to face the mud and the blood. The comic book kid and his buddies only asked for bullets, water, and a couple of green hornets for the job ahead. And if you could stay alive, maybe some whites for Saigon. Pasadena, North Hollywood, January 1971. Hey, rock and rollers, that's The Doors, and I'm Sister Kate, your LA woman on KPPC FM. The rest of the Pierce family will be along later. Meantime, I got the music and the news about the City of Lights and your piece of it. Was that the earth moving last night, or was it just me having a good time? Credibility Gap at 6 p.m., Les and Susan, Steve in Mississippi, all coming up later. The West Coast Record promo man says to me, Santana's Black Magic Woman is #5 in the country and we got to play it. And I say, man, Yeah, we planned it, but I got you, black magic woman. What do you say? Call me on the rap line. Tell me what you want to hear, and I'll try to stick it in there. Like the rest of the voices at KPPC, Kate's on-air personality was developing. At once hip and cynical, she was already what the women's movement of the 70s and 80s would strive for and lose sight of. Mother figure, businesswoman, talent, she was doing it all. We witnessed her creating one of the most used expressions of the early 70s. Kate went with Jim Bachman to see the Italian movie Mondo Cane, from which came the Academy Award-winning theme and love song Moore. Mondo became a favorite and more accurate response than weird or far out. And since Kate felt most of life was bizarre, it was a short step to Mondo Bizarro. Used to describe a wide array of happenings, Mondo Bizarro found its way into the headlines of Rolling Stone magazine. Sister Kate was certifiable.
LA woman, Sunday afternoon, drive through your suburbs, into your blues, into your blues, yeah, into your blues, into your blues. Oh, yeah.
Jeff Gonza's girlfriend Valerie moved into one of the duplex apartments next door, so we were seeing a lot of Jeff. Smokey and Rolla were living in the other apartment. It was very much like our own little commune. Our waterbed on the floor of the garage apartment was surrounded by several hundred albums stacked on shelves all the way up to the wooden shingle roof. When the waterbed sprang a leak, we pulled it outside and started sleeping up on the loft with the kids, while I looked around for the best deal on a new waterbed. Some waterbed merchant would probably do a deep discount in return for the Pierce family touting his business on the radio. A few free plugs were not frowned on. Of course, if Kate could sell the merchant a schedule of live 60-second spots, that 60 seconds would probably stretch into a couple of minutes or more. So long as it was loose, natural, and entertaining, no problem.
Don't forget, you have only until September the 5th to take part in Waterworks Waterbed's anniversary sale, going on at both locations, 10,766 Washington Boulevard and at 1231 South Euclid. Going on at both stores is a sale that means 10% off their regular low prices. The prices that include such fine service, fine waterbeds, complete systems for low prices, and during their sale, 10% off any purchase. Waterworks Waterbeds, open 12 to 9 daily, Saturday 10 to 6, Sunday 12 noon to 5. Shop around and compare, and you'll find that for your money, there's nothing better than a Waterworks waterbed. Don't forget, two things are nicer on a waterbed, one of 'em sleeping. Or join the Navels and see the world.
Hey, copper, you say water kind of funny.
There were other opportunities to bend the radio rules, some more serious than others. The practice of double billing was rampant with media all over the country, until eventually laws were passed that would cost a station its license if caught. I had been approached by Ron Johnson of the Sound Factory in Beverly Hills. I would give him the blank form, he'd enter the double-billed numbers, and the money would roll in. Meanwhile, the blank billing forms had been stashed on the top shelf of the record albums, waiting.
I see your hair is burning. Hills are filled with fire. If they say I never loved you, you know they are a liar.
Sleeping with the kids in the loft wasn't really comfortable. John David slept badly, tossing, turning, and kicking most of the night. At 6 a.m., the kicking was so insistent that it woke me out of a fitful dream in which a giant was at the back door shaking the entire house. Consciousness clicked in after I was already standing up, only to be thrown violently, bruising my left shoulder against the 6x6 post that supported the roof. John David and Shell woke up as the loft shuddered and shook. Kate was already comforting them. "It's okay," she said. "Lay down. Don't try to get up." The sound of breaking glass and falling objects were all around us. Next door, Jeff's voice rang out yelling, "Earthquake!" It was over in less than 30 seconds, but it seemed a lot longer. Much longer. Amid the aftershocks, the news slowly came in. At 6.5, this certainly wasn't the big one. The epicenter was in the northern part of San Fernando Valley, just a few miles away. There were a dozen deaths. Freeway overpasses had collapsed and crushed automobiles. Widespread damage, but a lot to be thankful for, including the hour. At 6 a.m., commuter traffic was still light. But the big fear was there. Smokey, Jeff, and I sat around the apartment talking about the possibility of the big one coming within days or weeks, and what would be the best possible escape routes from Los Angeles in a worst-case scenario. Each time an aftershock rumbled the floor, we'd tighten up. When I finally got around to picking up the pieces, I started with the pile of record albums that had crashed into the exact spot where the leaky waterbed was once located. I imagined the headline, "Disc jockey killed by falling rock and roll records in Los Angeles quake." At the bottom of the pile was the blank forms to double bill the sound factory. I threw them out with the broken glass.
Driving down your freeway, midnight alleys roam, cops in cars, the topless bars, never saw a woman so alone, so alone, so alone, so alone.
Los Angeles, February 1971.
I'm going home, and when I wanna go home, I'm going mobile.
The idea first hit me when I saw an ad in the LA Times announcing the giant motor mobile home show to be held in Dodger Stadium. Kate, John David, Shell, and I headed over to Chavez Ravine, where over 100 motor mobile homes were on display. We checked out several models. The kids were having a grand time running through the miniature homes. Kate was somewhat more skeptical. "These things cost thousands of dollars. We can't afford something like this," she said. "Wouldn't it be great to get out of the city, to go up to Big Bear or Arrowhead, even up to the Sequoias in Yosemite, get out of the smog, get a breath of fresh air for the kids?" I was selling hard. "Drive it to Louisiana and camp out on our property," she added. "But we don't have the money." "No, we don't," I had to agree. "Not yet, anyway." Over several months, the idea kept gnawing at me. I wanted a motor mobile. Maybe it was the 60s syndrome. Maybe it was being in the car culture of Southern California. The ability to keep moving became an obsession. The flexibility to get out of town became a real need. By the time the Who's song came out, I was ready.
Out in the woods or in the city, it's all the same to me. When I'm driving free, the world's my home.
Still being no closer to having the several $1,000 price tag on a motor mobile, I began to consider alternatives. The conversion of VW vans to campers and semi-livable units was widespread. School buses, in particular, were a favorite, but these front-engine nose vehicles were not very attractive. Now, a Greyhound bus or some of the rigs that rock bands toured in, that would be the way to go. Then one morning on the ride from North Hollywood to Pasadena, I spotted a school bus in Glendale. I'd seen these buses hundreds of times before, grinding their gears through block after block, hauling kids through the LA streets. They were 35 feet long, flat-nosed, with mid-mounted Hall-Scott gasoline-powered truck engines. They were great-looking buses. Engineered for safety, they had heavy-duty framework inside 3 skins of top-grade steel. Across the front was the name of the manufacturer, Crown Coach. When I went on the air, Kate got on the phone and came back 10 minutes later. "It's the Crown Coach Company," she said. "They build only 2 vehicles, both for the city of Los Angeles. One is fire trucks, the other is school buses." "Great," I said. "Do you think they'll trade airtime for a bus?" "I asked the guy," she said. "He wasn't sure what he would want to advertise on a hip rock station, but I told him it would be good for his community image. I don't think he's buying it." "We could live in it, Kate," I blurted out. "I was afraid you'd say that," she said. "Are you sure you wouldn't rather have a fire engine?"
Keep me moving over 50. Keep me grooving, just a hippie gypsy. Come on, move now.
few days later, Les Carter and I met with Doug Cox. Dave has this idea, Les began. He would like to trade some radio time for a bus. A bus? What would you do with it, Dave? Doug wondered. Well, I'd convert it to a motor mobile and I'd live in it, I said. With your family? Sure, why not? Well, it seems a little crazy, but that's your business, Doug said as he segued into being a manager. The only problem is, Dave, if we trade airtime, the station would have some kind of ownership in that bus. Les was trying to help. He says, well, we thought we could use it for promotions, Doug. Drive it around town, show up at concerts. Yeah? Doug was beginning to catch on. Where would it be parked? Out back in the parking lot, under the avocado tree. That was my answer. You guys know how we love this place. I would always be available, never be more than 50 feet away. It's a hell of an idea. Yeah, Doug said slowly. He wanted to think about it some more. He didn't want to say no just yet. A few days later, a call came from the Crown Coach salesman. We drove to downtown L.A. Mr. Pierce, the salesman said, here's your bus, pointing to the big yellow one with the Rialto School District written on the side. Just got it in this morning. I was looking out for you. It's a 1952 model, been in service ever since. How many miles on it? I asked. Well, the speedometer says 77,000. Of course, that could be 177, or perhaps it could be 277. I have no way of knowing. Well, can we do the paperwork? I said. I was getting eager. I'll sign for it, and when you're ready, I'll run some commercials. Can't do that, he said, bursting my bubble. The president of Crown didn't want any ads on your radio station, but he did want me to make you a generous offer. Only $1,800. It did sound generous. Perhaps he was just trying to avoid any bad press from a hippie disc jockey. So while John David, Shell, and I explored the interior, Kate wrote the check. Within minutes, I was wheeling out my very own Crown Coach. Sitting forward of the front wheels made the steering kind of weird, and the whole system seemed just a little loose. But I was soon following the Volvo as John David and Shell looked out the back window of the car, their eyes big with excitement. I was hugging the right lane, occasionally scraping the guardrails of the Pasadena freeway. Finally, I parked on the tree-lined street across from KPPC. Kate went on the air. "Listen up, radio fans," she said. "Here's your chance to get your own seat out of the bus that will become the Pierce family's home. So bring a couple of wrenches and meet me at 99 South Chester Street in Pasadena." When my air shift ended 3 hours later, I walked across the street. The last happy long hairs were unscrewing the final seat bolted to the floor. They thanked us profusely and scurried away, carrying their prize. The interior of the bus was now stripped bare and ready for conversion. The next day, a trip to Camper World with Bill Jensen secured electrical and plumbing parts, stove, fridge, sink, shower, and John. The long process was ready to begin. I was determined to travel light, stay loose, and be mobile.
I don't care about pollution. I'm an air-conditioned gypsy. That's my solution. Watch the police and the tax man miss me. I'm mobile. Ooh, yeah. Yee. Mobile, yeah.
KPPC FM, 99 South Chester, Pasadena, March 1971.
James Dean, I know just what you mean. James Dean, you said it all so clean. And I know my life would look alright if I could see it on the silver screen.
Hello, David. My name is Alan Gerstal. I'm a big fan of KPPC, and I listen to the Pierce family. I'm taking a break from CBS TV City, and I'd like to produce a film on the Pierce family. The voice on the telephone had my attention. What format are you going to shoot on? I asked. 16 millimeter, Alan answered. It's not like a feature or anything, he said, lowering my expectations slightly. How long will it be? I asked. 15, 20 minutes maybe? You'll want to shoot in the KPPC studio, right? Sure, he replied, but not just your work at KPPC. I want to show your home life, the relationship within your family. You know, what you're doing on the radio is unique. It's been done, I said. Ozzie Nelson got rich on this idea. Kids, as part of a family of disc jockeys on an underground radio station is brand new, Alan said. I'll talk to Kate, I told Alan, getting his phone number and thinking that we needed to do this. 16 millimeter could be blown up for theater distribution. As an actor, I would have some great film on myself, which could lead to acting roles. Disc jockey Bob Crane from KLAC had made it big on Hogan's Heroes. KRLA's Sam Riddle was hosting music specials and doing voiceovers. I could do all that. Kate agreed the film could have possibilities. It would be a great pulpit for our ideas and lifestyle. At the very least, it would be a well-made family movie.
Magic mirror, won't you tell me please? Do I find myself in anyone I see? Magic mirror, if we only could try to see ourselves as others would.
We shot inside our showcase apartment, setting up a lifestyle just from the look of the space. The kids on the piano, Kate on the phone, selling airtime.
Into advertising a lot of schlock that our audience couldn't relate to or didn't believe in. That's, why KPPC is the #1 station in town. No, and I definitely think you should buy all 3 time periods.
As long as we're living in Los Angeles, we've tried to get out of town as often as we can. We're trying to take an extra day off during the week when we can, like work longer days and grab an extra Friday or Monday and get out of town. Some of the neighboring areas are good for camping. Of course, there's the beach, but there's a lot of nice places. If you start getting out of Los Angeles, it's amazing the number of nice places that are just like a couple of hours away. And that's one of the things that we'd really like to see people getting into. And one of the things that we've talked a lot about on the radio is people getting out of town as much as possible for as long as possible. Eventually getting out of Los Angeles completely. If about half of us left, the other half would find it a lot easier. The consciousness of the whole country now is aware of the fact that cities are really not the best place to live. That the quality of life in a city is really a lot less than it can be in other areas, in smaller towns or out in the country, living off the land. It's definitely more spiritual to be in the woods versus walking on cement. But you can't realize that as long as you're walking on cement. You got to get out and walk on the earth again to be able to feel it. I think we probably are in a position of being able to turn a lot of people on to a better lifestyle than a lot of us have been into. Simply because we're on the radio every afternoon, that what we do, people will know about, and if it's worthwhile, if it's a good idea, something that we're into, it will be passed along to them. So then it becomes an opportunity, and we really should, as much as possible, use that opportunity to turn people onto something good.
I was on the waterbed, headsets on my long shaggy hair as I auditioned LPs and marked the album covers for future reference. There was a shot of the Volvo, bike racks loaded, climbing the mountain road, the thick brown haze of the Los Angeles basin in the background. We were always on a mission to escape the bad air, so Alan and 2 crew members simply came along on one of our frequent camping trips in the nearby mountains. There were no big trucks filled with movie equipment, no honey wagons, no teamsters, and no production assistants, no script supervisors, but they shot enough film to capture the adventure.
Segway. Okay, John David, you slide out, and Shell, slide in over here if you would. Where are you, Shelley? What's that sound?
That's motor skate.
Shell, John David has a birthday coming up in just a little bit, so Shell has written a poem for him, just especially for the occasion.
John David is my brother. I like him like no other. Every day we ride our bikes, we climb up trees, we talk in mics.
John David is in such a unique position of having, like being a rock and roll radio disc jockey at the age of 7 really puts you ahead of the game.
On John David's 8th birthday, Kate staged a party in the backyard on Babcock. The colorful tie-dye affair rolled for the camera. When a Cajun song played, Jeff Gonzo and I danced each other around the party of hyper kids and spaced-out adults, our long hair bouncing off our shoulders.
To policemen, I'm suspicious. It's in the way I look. I'm just another character, the fingerprinted book. And the sellers think I'm merchandise, they'll have me for a song. The left ones think I'm right, the right ones think I'm wrong.
The scenes in the studio were probably the best, an authentic look at what really happened during the Pierce family show. If the mic was on, if the mic was off, it was all the same to the Pierce family. The studio was just another room that we lived in. The kids on my knee leaning into the microphone to insert address or telephone numbers in the live commercial copy, or introducing a record because they knew the artist from having memorized the look of the album cover, turning on Kate's mic across the turntable from me so she could do a PSA, or get down on local authorities for the latest counterculture grievance.
For some time now, the 4-day work week has been discussed as a means of curing some of the ills of our society. A number of companies, large and small, have tried it out with positive results. We think the time is right now for all of us to start pushing for a 4-day work week. The advantages in relieving traffic congestion and allowing more leisure time are obvious. The more subtle benefits to family life, human relationships, and the quality of life are even more important. So let's shake loose from this worker consciousness.
KPPC, senor. Pasadena.
See, I got the 1984
Thoughts are
card
electrical,
rolling.
Okay.
and knowing wrong thoughts restrict this electrical current. It seemed possible that a small device could be made which would give a signal
All right, Kate,
when
I'll
an
come up with
individual
one.
persisted in
I'll do it,
unreasonable
you do it.
thinking.
Shell, can you get that? Can you cue that up and stop it? I'll do her one. You just cue it up and stop it when you're ready. Okay, here you go. I got it, Katie. Irwan Trading Company has a couple of stores in the Los Angeles area now. Both of them are full of a lot of good things to eat. Irwan's grains and whole grain flours for baking are just about the best you'll find anywhere. Of course, they're all organically grown. Walnuts and pistachios and cashews that taste like nuts are supposed to taste. A complete line of soaps and shampoos. Cooking ware is available too. Just about everything you'll need for preparing meals at home. All organically grown produce too at Irwan's. The Irwan Trading Company at 8003 Beverly Boulevard. The new store at 3817 Sunset. Open Monday through Saturday, 10 until 6:30.
I'll take this.
Thanks.
We'll
See you
go.
again.
Bye, John.
Go ahead. Kate's been responsible over the last about a year and a half for really revolutionizing our diet. We had the traditional American diet, lots of meat, lots of things out of the supermarket. Although her Italian background, she always got into a lot of salads and things, and a lot of green things for us. But over the past year and a half, she's become aware of diet and the problems with the traditional American diet, and what we need to do to change it.
You just gotta put a little bit at a time in each one.
Throughout it all, my fingers danced on the control board, moving the slide pots up and down, selecting the volume on the mics, stopping and starting turntables, firing off the cartridge tape machine, one eye on the VU meter, the other on the clock. Circling an arm around Shell to keep her from falling off my constantly bouncing knee, with my mind racing to the next sequence and thinking, this has to be the absolute best job in the world. The homemade sound of KPPC was right there on the audio track, the Persuasion singing out, KPPC FM, the sound of stereo. KPPC FM, Pasadena, stereo. The tape cartridge, ready to declare, mistake, mistake, this disc jockey has just made a mistake. Another tape reminding everyone to Segway, and perhaps our most famous announcement, which played off the Avon makeup commercial. It featured a doorbell, the announcement, "A-bomb calling," followed by the nuclear explosion, trailing off into the next rock record.
A-bomb calling.
Okay, the A-bomb current's happening, Katie. I'm gonna pay to get ready for the PSA. Right, Trip. What's that? What's that sound?
It's the sound of a duck choking.
Choking in Los Angeles?
Right.
Choking on the air in Los Angeles?
Right.
What can that duck do? Is there any way he can save himself?
Sure, he can go on over to the mountains.
He can
maybe
go to the beach and take a swim?
Right, or he could get back to the farm where he belongs and leave the city for good.
Yeah, lots of happy ducks here in the studio thinking about how it is on the farm, how it is out of Los Angeles, out of any big city. Think about those things, ways you might be able to get yourself out of town.
The biggest obstacle to the Pierce family film was getting rights to the music. A film about disc jockeys had to have a soundtrack filled with the music and lyrics of the late 60s and early 70s hits. To get through the legal hurdles would be a nightmare, way out of our league. So I called Don Hall, who by now had spent most of his Zabriskie Point wages. If Don Hall could score Antonione's film, he could certainly do ours. Not as well, of course, with only 3 musicians and limited studio time, which was all we could squeeze from Alan's production budget. Don Hall did a good job of capturing the feel of what we were about, but it wasn't the kind of soundtrack I'd heard in my head, where a million tunes were running around. When we viewed the final product, I didn't think it would ever make it to the big screen. It was, after all, a well-made family movie. Its real value would be as footage in future documentaries on KPPC.
Okay, I'll take it. Hello, KPPC. No, I don't think so. Yeah. No, I heard it. No, I don't think I want to play it. Try one of the other guys, okay? Look, my record's running out. I gotta go. Okay, bye. Okay, John David, it's time to close. Will you help me out? Katie, you're set?
Okay, I'm ready.
All right. Here, John David. You're up here. All right, Katie. Leslie coming along in just a little bit, and John David will be back after the credibility gap. Okay, Katie, you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, you're on.
We're the Pierce family, and we'll be seeing you another time, but please, please, please stay tuned for Leslie Frogman Gardner.
We'll be back tomorrow after the credibility gap. Bye.
I sit down every day and play the music that I like and talk about sponsors I really dig on and have the freedom to talk about just about anything that's on my head. And at the same time, I have my family doing it with me. That's really very rewarding to me.
Segway.
KPPC, beautiful Pasadena. We're the Pierce family, and that's it for now.
Magic mirror, won't you tell me please? Do I find myself in anyone I see? Magic mirror, if we only could try to see ourselves as others would.
Claude Russell Bridges, Leon Russell, was from Tulsa, Oklahoma, which was also the home of Bob Wills, the king of Western swing, who launched his career with a live show on KVOO radio. Bob Wills' most famous line to his steel guitar player, Leon McAuliffe, was, "Take it away, Leon." And that's why the young piano and guitar player Claude Bridges took the name Leon Russell. The other story was, when the band arrived in LA, they had fake IDs. The name on one ID was Leon.